So write us at Post Office Box 7432 6763. Again, welcome to It's Getting Better All the Time, Mental Health Outreach, where we provide information and support while encouraging hope and faith primarily to individuals who are living with the symptoms of a severe and persistent mental illness or severe and persistent negative life situation. Now, for those of you who have been following us, you know what we mean when we say severe and persistent mental illnesses. You understand that there are mental illnesses, and then when we talk about severe and persistent mental illnesses, we are talking about those illnesses that are so severe and long-reaching or far-reaching that they impact all aspects of an individual's life, in reference to schizophrenia, bipolar, and things of that nature. Today, though, in addition to some of the other things that we do as well, but I wanted to start off by talking about African Americans in particular. Now, I'm referencing African Americans, but this actually, a lot of the data that people quote when we talk about African Americans can be applied to anybody, actually. But I'm going to talk about African Americans briefly since it is February. One of the things that you hear over and over again in the media, as they'll say that African Americans, black people, tend to rely on family, religious, and social communities for emotional support rather than turning to healthcare professionals. But this is not necessarily a bad thing, and this is my point. While I titled this, "It's okay," it's not necessarily a bad thing. They quote this, they meaning people in the media, other people who they quote this, African Americans, black people tend to rely on their family systems more than other people, or black people, they tend to go to the churches, and they say this as if this is a bad thing. And it's not necessarily a bad thing. So I just want to kind of keep that in mind. As someone who has been working in the mental health field for a long time, I can tell you that is not a necessarily bad thing. It's just like with anything. It's just like when you're seeking out a therapist or a counselor. You have to find the right person. There are some good ones and there are some bad ones. It's the same thing. There's good advice and bad advice, good support, negative support, all across the board. But you just have to find the right one. One of the things So keep in mind when people say things like that, you have to, number one, think about what is the agenda behind for the person who's saying that. What is their agenda, right? When you look at families, religious support systems have been in our culture, and not just but just across the board since forever. And it was really the religious inspirational churches, family that has gotten us from point A to point B to where we are now. So the thing is, when you want to take out the good, you don't want to throw away, what is that saying, throw away the baby with the bathwater. You want to take out what can be used, strengthen those things that remain. The Bible talks about strengthening those things that remain, those things that are good, those things that are lovely. Those are the things that you want to strengthen. Those are the things that you want to use. And it's just like anything else. The things that don't work, use them. So let me read this again. And this is something that I wrote. African Americans tend to rely on family, religious, and social communities for emotional support rather than turning to healthcare professionals. Not necessarily a bad thing. I think the thing is, it's important, however, for all of us to be educated, to get as much information as we can about mental health symptoms, diagnosis, medications, and things of that nature, so that we can point our loved ones in the right direction. But it's not a bad thing that people turn to their faith. It's not a bad thing that people turn to religion, or they turn to family members or friends. Not necessarily a bad thing. Families, religious, and social communities can be instrumental in encouraging those affected to get the help that they need. Because people, more likely than not, are going to go to a religious community, a faith community, family or friends. Okay, that's what they're going to do more likely, right? So that means you're going to be in a position to have to talk to somebody who may be dealing with the impact of an illness, severe and persistent mental illness, depression, anxiety, or whatever the case is. And it's important that you know what to do, right? One of the first things is just to talk, to be a listening ear. You don't have to have all of the answers. But I'm kind of coming against this thought process that somehow everything that we do is bad and everything that's in the larger community is good. And that's not the case. Our what we do, our families, these are what we call protective factors. These are things that protect us from the bad things that are out there. Now again, just like anything, it can be good and bad. But again, you have to know the difference. But you don't want to get in the thought process that somehow, faith communities, religious communities, family and friends, they're bad. No, they're not bad at all. Just like they're good and bad therapists, okay? So family, religious, and social communities can be instrumental in encouraging those affected to get the help that they need. Why? Because that's usually where people are going to go where people are going to go. People are usually going to turn to a pastor, a friend, a family member. That's who they're going to turn to. And that is not necessarily a bad thing. So don't make people think that it's a bad thing. Don't make people think that the very things, the very protective factors that have brought you from point A to B, or brought African Americans, black people as a community from point A to point B, is now a bad thing. That we should reject that and do what everybody else is doing. No, you can strengthen those things that remain. We can do both. You can have your family, your friends, your religious, your spirituality. You can do that and then add to the other things. So don't let people make you feel bad about that. Because see, there's a trick of the enemy. When we lose. We don't strengthen those things that remain. If this is what's helping you, it makes no sense to let go of the thing that's helping you, and then you're going to try something new. And I'm not saying it's not. It could be a good thing, but you can do both. You can have your family, your faith, your religion, spirituality, whatever term you're more comfortable with. We know from the literature that both spirituality and religion, both terms, when we know from the literature, can be good things. So it's not one over the other. Again, that's just another mindset to try to separate people. It's just like when Adam and Eve, or when Eve was in the garden, and the Satan came to her, and they tried to kind of put a wedge between something that was good and something being God and what He said, and something bad. Did God really say, okay, you go into your family, is that really a good thing? Or you go into your faith, is that really a good thing? People ridicule people's faith. They ridicule people's religion. They ridicule their families. You shouldn't do that. You need to do this. Why? Because we think that someone else's ice is colder. We think that someone else is better. We think that they're doing better than we are, and all we have is our family, not really realizing it was our family, our friends, our community, our faith, our religion that got us from point A to B. We don't want to throw that away. We want to add to it. Those things that are good, we want to strengthen those things that remain, those good things, okay? So also, you're going to keep in mind, I want to throw out another point here. Why it's so important. African Americans, especially in the United States, and this is what I'm referring to, still, even in 2021, are overrepresented in a lot of the high-need populations that are particularly at risk for mental illness, okay? To include those who are homeless, jail population, we're looking at being poor. One of the biggest factors when we talk about untreated mental illness is a person's economic status, right? So think about it. If you're poor, right, and you think about where your next meal is coming from, where you have to think about how you're going to raise your kids, or how you're going to keep them safe, or how are you going to police brutality, and all these different things that's going on, and you're poor, then that in itself adds extra stress, extra anxiety, right? So kind of keep that in mind. So when we talk about African Americans during this month of February 27th to be exact, I'm not sure when you'll see this, think about the fact that it is a good thing. Our families can be a good thing. Our friends can be a good thing. Our faith and communities are good things. We don't have to throw them away. We can still do therapy. In fact, when we look at some of the research with therapy, around counseling and things of that nature, it really doesn't, what matters is having the right person, a person that you can speak to, a person that you can talk to, a person that will listen, a person that will kind of help you think about what your next steps and strategies are. That could be a therapist, that can be a good friend or family member. So again, depending on what your need is. So again, just kind of keep that in mind. And I'm not bashing therapy because, that's kind of what we do. But just kind of keep that in mind. As we move forward, don't feel like you have to be doing what everyone else is doing in order to be okay. You can be okay right where you are with your family, your friends, with your faith. Okay? Another point I wanted to throw out, as I said, I'm going to read this again. African Americans are overrepresented in many of the high-need populations that are particularly at risk for mental illness, to include those who are homeless, jail, and the poor. But things are not hopeless as they sound. Okay? Even though we're overrepresented in a lot of these high-need situations, and I think I talked before about Maslow's hierarchy of needs. One of the things that people love to say around this time of the year, a lot of people, that quote-unquote black people, African Americans don't care about mental health. And they push it on us as if we're stupid and we don't know that it's a reason, or that we should be concerned about our mental health. And I always say that that's not true. We are concerned about our mental health. We are concerned about what's going on with our children and things of that nature. The problem that we have is look at it through the lens of Maslow's hierarchy of needs. When you're thinking about the basics, right? And what the Maslow's hierarchy of needs say, you got to take care of the basics before you can kind of move up the ladder to what we call self-actualization. So if I'm worrying about how I'm going to feed my family, or how I'm going to get my son out of jail who was falsely arrested, or how am I going to be able to walk from point A to point B without getting stopped, or how I'm worried about being fired because I was the last hired, so I'll probably be the first fired. If I'm worried about, how I'm going to pay bills, or how I'm going to feed my family, all of those things, those are the number one things that I'm focused on. Those are the things that are important to me. It doesn't mean that other things are less important. It just means that those basic things are the most important right now. So because I'm focusing on the most basic things, it may seem like I'm not interested and maybe some of the other things, but that's not the case. African Americans do care. It's just that we have a high population. We're overrepresented in a lot of the areas, in the high need areas, such as homelessness, poverty, and things of that nature. So it is not true that we don't care. Okay, so that's number one. Factors such as our faith, our community, mental health treatments and supports can help to decrease those risks. So what risk am I talking about? I just said that because we're in the high need population, poverty, everything that I mentioned, the poverty and wondering how you're going to make ends meet and things of that nature, those things put us at risk for stress. They put us at higher risk for anxiety, higher risk for a lot of different things. So we have those things that put us at risk, right? But then there are those things that decrease the risk. And those things that decrease the risk are our faith, are our religion, our families, our support systems, are our neighborhoods, the barbershop, even hanging out on the corner with our friends talking. It may not seem like it, but just having that socialization, okay? All of those things are things that can decrease the risk. So think about it. Why would you throw away those things that would decrease the risk? Okay, decrease your family, your friends, your religion, your faith, talking to people. So you're going to throw those things away. These are the things that will help us. These are the things that stabilize us, and you're going to throw those things away, or kind of think negatively of those things just because of because of what you're hearing. Because people keep saying, "Oh, black people don't care about this. African Americans don't care about mental health," and that is not true. That's a lie. That's just something that gets perpetrated. Think about it from a spiritual lens. The enemy desires to kill, steal, and destroy. Jesus has come that we might have life and life more abundantly. The problem is that anything that the enemy can do to take away that life, to keep us going on a little, like a rat on a wheel, going around in circles, he'll do that because we can never move forward. And I'm telling you today is that when we do care, that there is hope. Do not throw away your religion. Do not throw away your faith. Do not throw away your family and friends. They're there. That's what got us from point A to point B. You can add to it, right? Strengthen those things that remain. But don't just look down on yourself. You should be proud of how far you have come, given the little that you've had to work with. Given the little that you've had to work with, look at how far that you've come. That doesn't mean that we don't have a long way to go, but everybody has a long way to go, right? So when you talk about African Americans not caring about mental health or behavioral health issues, nobody really does, right? And when I say nobody, it just seems that way. Even in the larger population, we talk about stigma. In the larger population, whether you're black or white, if you got to worry about how you're going to live, that type of stuff is less. As far as that type of stuff, I mean mental health type related issues, because it doesn't seem as real to you, because you're working, you're moving, you're trying to make things happen. It's only as time goes on that you begin to see the impact. Okay, so again, factors such as our faith, our community, mental health treatments, and other supports can help us. Okay. But as I said before, regardless of our race or religious beliefs, many people don't like to talk about mental illness. So it's just not just African Americans. As I said before, some people, bottom line, some people are distracted with the challenges in their own lives. Others don't know what mental illnesses are or understand the negative impact that untreated mental illness have on society. And lastly, the stigma associated with a mental illness prevents people from reaching out and getting the help and support that they need. Okay? So there are a lot of reasons why people don't get the support that they need. Again, like I said, distracted with other things. Sometimes you just don't think about it. It's not something that becomes a reality to you until you need it to be. Or, mean a family member or somebody that you know is impacted. Or you just don't know, you don't think you know a lot of people. So again, when we talk about what I started with African Americans tend to rely on family, religious, and social communities for emotional support rather than turning to healthcare professionals. If you just listen to that statement that that people are making, that some people make, that sounds like a bad thing. It is not necessarily a bad thing, right? It is not necessarily a bad thing, because it is your family, religious, and social communities that have gotten us from point A to point B, that have gotten us from where we are, that have sustained us over these hundreds of years, and that continue to sustain us. Because it is our family, religious, and social communities that when our insurance runs out and we no longer can see the therapist that we want to see or the counselor that we need to see, those are the ones that we kind of go back to. Those are the people that pick us up. It's our family, it's our religion, our faith, our social communities. So again, we want to strengthen those things that were made. Many of us may not go to see a therapist. And not everyone does need to see a therapist or a psychiatrist or get medication. Not everyone needs to do that. Some people do, some people don't. But when you look at your community, there are people in your community who have gone through the similar things that you've gone through, or I've gone through. There are people in your faith community who believe the way that you believe, have gone through the same thing that you've gone through. There are people out there in your family. It's a matter of having the conversation and start talking. You'll be surprised how much healing comes from just talking amongst your family members, or just talking amongst your religious community or your community in general. People coming together and people sharing their different feelings, their thoughts, their different ideas or experiences. So again, you don't want to lose the fact that the healing that comes from the community, the healing that comes from your family, that can come from your family. You might say, well, my family is toxic. Well, there are some toxic therapists out there as well, believe it or not, who are practicing. Unfortunately, I've met a few of them, right? So what do? You go to somebody else. If your family is not working, you make another family. You find another family to be a part of. You find another social community. Because you have to think about everybody in your family, in your social community, in your religious belief, it can't be toxic, right? And if that's the case, you might want to kind of take a look at you yourself. What are you doing? Why do I keep attracting or finding myself in these particular situations? So again, take advantage of the things that are out there for you. You don't want to just throw it away because somebody's telling you that it's not a good thing, or somebody's making you think that it's less than. You start looking at family, friends, religion, the same things that got you over, you start looking at them kind of sideways. Oh, they're not good enough. Well, maybe, and on another broadcast, I'll share some of the actual numbers, because it was kind of as of being in the mental health field, was kind of astounding when you look at the data as far as the comparison, how much better off people are with therapy versus how much better off people were without. I can tell you it wasn't that exciting. It wasn't like, wow, this is the way to go. It wasn't like that at all. So again, what makes the difference is having that support, having that person around you. So what are the next steps? What I want you to do, if you're listening to me, watching me, if you see someone, if you see someone that you're concerned about, ask someone, or pray. Pray and ask the Lord, okay, who should I talk to today? Who should I approach? And just ask them, say, how are you doing today? How are you feeling? And they may say, oh, I'm doing fine. I'm blessed and highly favored. Followed up with why. Why are you blessed and highly favored? Well, I'm blessed and highly favored because the Lord is with me. How is He with you? Tell me, I want to know how you're doing. Okay? How are you sleeping? A lot of people are not sleeping well right now. A lot of people are anxious right now. A lot of people are worried. A lot of people are, there are people who are going to the food banks, some of you may not know, but in certain communities, if you are, you lost your job or whatever the case is and you don't really have a lot of food, they have like certain churches, or they may have it in schools or different places where you can go and you can get free food. You sign up, you can get free food. So, food banks. So there are a lot of people who are going to food banks who have never gone to food banks before. They're doing this for the first time. So they've never gone to food banks before. So you have people going to food banks. You have people who are blowing through their savings. They had a savings a year ago when this pandemic started. Now they're blowing through their savings. There are a lot of people who, as a result of this pandemic, stopped working because we thought it was going to be a 1 month thing, 2 month thing. We didn't know it was going to be this long. Many people didn't know it was going to be this long, so they're blowing through their savings. So a lot of people are not okay. Ask somebody, how are you? Are you okay? Right? How are you sleeping? How are you eating? A lot of people are eating too much or too little. We laugh and joke about how, because of the pandemic, a lot of people were inside. You were inside and you were eating a lot. And, about the weight that we put on. Well, for some people, putting on their weight wasn't just about the fact that I was inside and I couldn't go out. It was about the fact that I was inside, I was worried. I was anxious. I was, concerned. Whatever word that you want to use, we were not okay. So ask, okay, how are you doing? Okay, what's going on with you? People now had to be instant teachers. So you're looking at, your kids are home, you had to be an instant teacher. The teachers whose job it is to teach have their own problems, their own children, their own concerns to worry about. Everybody, or many people were concerned and worried. So how are you doing? Okay, you might want to say to a person, tell them what you noticed. Hey, I'm noticing that over the last 1 month or two, you have been a little down, or you haven't been dressed in the way you dress, or you look sad. Is everything okay? Ask the question. Begin to have the conversation with the person. And sometimes it's healing for you as well, because when you ask that question, how are you doing? What's going on with you? Then it gives them an opportunity to ask you, how are you doing? Excuse me. Some of us are moving so quickly and doing things and just kind of keep going. We don't realize that we're not doing okay. When you think about it, they announced, I think it was Monday, the milestone, unfortunately, that we've reached in the United States as far as the deaths. And it's not like before, when somebody dies. Now we're in a society or culture, or it's a trend now that among some people, that when people die, because you can't go to the funerals, they have this thing now we can see it live stream. I'm like, who wants to see that? But that's what's happening now because of just the pandemic and because of the restrictions, that we're having to live stream funerals. What's the problem with that? The problem is that we're seeing it all the time. The news media is reporting to us every time somebody dies. They let us know. Every time they let us know the numbers. We had 50 people die of COVID today. 500 people died of COVID last week. So we hear about it all the time. Death is around us all the time. Not only is death, because the news media tells us, we have friends in our families that we know that we've been impacted by COVID. And it's not just, even if you don't have COVID, the disease itself, you're talking about the consequences, the fallout from it, which is worrying about how we're going to eat, worrying about our job security, our safety. Many people are thinking about who's next, right? Well, God, you get it now. It's like, oh my God, it's a death sentence. It's like we're just waiting to figure out who's going to be the next person. Like 1, 2, 3, 4 or 5 people in a row, and everybody's looking at each other thinking who's going to get it next. It's kind of almost like that feeling. So we're not okay. We're not okay. And that is where our family, our religious, social communities, that some people may think is a bad thing, is even more important. It's even more important to strengthen your families, to have that conversation, to have a conversation, to talk about how people are feeling, not just to keep going and say nothing. Because I think everybody is afraid, like I said, everybody's concerned. Everybody is worried about what the heck is going on. So again, just kind of keep that in mind. It's so important that we have that conversation with people, right? With one another. I'm sorry, I just wanted to check something. So this has been It's Getting Better All the Time, Mental Health Outreach, with your host, Sister A. Legree. You can log into our website at igbatt.com, providing information and support while encouraging hope and faith. And today I wanted to talk to you about the name of this title of our broadcast, It Is Okay. It is okay to seek out support from your family, from your religious community, from your friends and family. It's okay. It's okay. If your friends, family, they're not the people that you should, not okay, or find somebody else. But it's not a bad thing. Therapy, taking medications, I'm an advocate for, but I'm also an advocate for everything. Whatever that works. We want to use whatever that's out there, whatever tools. God has given us all things that pertaineth unto life and godliness. If you have a toxic family, toxic friends, then find different family and find different friends. Get to a therapist if that's what you need to do. But don't throw away what you've already been doing if it's been working for you. Don't feel that because you rely on your family, your friends, your religious community, your faith, that somehow you're less than those other people who don't do that. Don't think that, because that is a trick. That's a trick to separate you from the things that are already good. The scripture talks about whatever is good and what is lovely, whatever is a good report. If you've already had a good report based on the things that you're doing, don't throw those things away. Just add to it. Just add therapy to it. Just add medications to it. Just add whatever you want to add to it that's helpful. Exercise, eating right. All of these things can be added to what you're already doing. You don't have to throw what you're doing away if it's working for you. One of the things when we talk about our faith, religion, spirituality, as I said before, the data is out there. Both religion and spirituality, both concepts are good things. But just like anything can be misused, but both of them are good things. Your religion and spirituality, if it's working for you, use it. If it's not working